opened the cellular structure of so many lost cells inside the body and in the mind, that point, it we went from, and this is how I describe it. We went from planet Earth was like this in the consciousness, and that after that 16th and 17th, and it started before, but and then it accelerated, amplified, and um, a gradual lifting after the 17th, 18th, and you're good. And then there was this, and we went up to about here. This much we'd moved in consciousness, in awareness, in something to another dimension of mind and brain thought. That's what it was about. We weren't going to go and take us all the way up here all at once. We would all blown ourselves to bits. Our bodies would have imploded and exploded. So it has to be done slowly. And it's ever since then that my generation, started that movement forth. And then we birthed our children. My sons are in their 40s. And when they were born, I knew they were different. Their soul personalities were different, but I didn't know how. And so beyond me, looking for myself, then I started looking for who they were as individuals coming in through my husband and myself. And through that, I learned that obviously both of them, each as a unique individual, and how intricately tied that my sons and I do have this incredible karmic bond that their father is not even part of, which is amazing. He's part of something, but he's not this triangle that my sons and I have. And that was a huge learning. And so with that, I always had somewhere when they would go through crises, I would look at who they are and who they're becoming, and I would use those ideas to show them who they are. Sometimes I would put my spin on it, my push on who I want them to be. Yet I learn pretty much very fast, I can't make them into somebody who they are not. Because many people tried to make me into somebody I was not. And so I use that wisdom with them. Then they have their relationships, and some are wonderful and some are disastrous. And then they get married, and then they have their children. And it was then, when my first grandchild, my grandson, was born, I decided to do a painting that was based on the law of time, 13 moon, Mayan destiny seals. And I did my grandson, of his signature, and mom and dad. And then I did an audio tape wove the pieces of what their relationship is like and is likely to play out as, their strengths and their weaknesses, who they are, who they will not be. And then I did that with the human design charts and their gene keys charts and their astrology and their numerology. And I've also done it with the stellar nations, soul families charts. That this is who we are in this amazing, amazing, layering multi-dimensional layers. And they are the things that I will cover on how do I have the absolutes? No, of course not. But I give you places to begin. Another thing that happened in 1987 is with the shift in consciousness, it also awakened which was already in the process within certain individuals. But it also awakened the ability to have new psychologies come in that would be in line with the new souls that will be coming in at the late 20th and into the 21st century. I call them this 21st century psychologies. And besides astrology and looking at astrology differently, we have the Mayan destiny seals, the law of time, which was brought through by Jose Aguirres. And he would have been under the tutelage of his grandfather since he was about 12, 13 years old in Mexico. And he was being primed and honed to bring in the information that was about the Mayan calendar and the end of that Mayan calendar, 5,200 year cycle that ended December the 21st, 2012. He was the first one that I studied. I read the soon as the book, The Mayan Factor, came out, I got a copy. Oh my gosh, I've read it. I understood maybe 10%, and the rest I had no clue of what it was about. It was so complicated. It was so mind blowing and mind boggling. Yet my cells knew it. And I kept going, and I would put it down for years sometimes. And then something would tell me to pick it up, and I would pick it up. And what I had learned in the meantime, I would read the work in the Mayan Factor or the other books that he had, and about the 13 moon destiny seals. And I'm going, oh, that's what that was about. I didn't know it back here. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the experience. I had to learn and learn and learn. And then that's where that fits. The next thing that came to me was human design. And that came out round about, a couple of years later than the Destiny Seals. And it was brought forth by a gentleman, I do not know his English birth name, but he goes by, or did go by, the name Ra-Ur. And he was, interestingly, he was an Aries. He was an imposing man. He was Aries. In the Mayan, in the human design, when you understand and learn that, he was a manifester. And he was very much the first to say that he was an egotistical, horrible person of a manifester. He was an authority. He was mean. He was nasty. And it was through him and the experience he had, which you can go and learn about, is just quite remarkable, on the island of Ibiza, that he was put into a place of bringing a trance, a downloadable vacuum vessel to bring in the information of human design. And for 25 plus years, he honed that information for us. He passed, interestingly enough, on it was March, I think it was March the 11th or March the 13th, can't remember which one, 2011. It was the day of the Fukushima earthquake in Japan. The next thing, and interestingly enough, Jose and Ra were intricately connected because sadly Jose passed 13 days after Ra did, in the March of that year. Then the next one to come in and I was aware of was Richard Rudd, and he brought in the gene keys. He was one of the very first students of Ra-Ur and human design. He also had a knowledge and an interest in Jose's work, and he brought in the gene keys. And the gene keys took the information of human design, which is more about the physical world of our interaction and the physicalness of our times and who we are as a personality. And the second, astrologies, that goes with the human sign is what our design is. And that is based on 88 days prior to birth. That 88 days prior to birth, I describe it, and I think they do, and people describe it in different ways, but it's like that's when soul anchors or acknowledges the body, the being that it's coming into to be birthed. And they're most often very different astrologies. And our challenge is to move beyond the personality that we have been told that we are and are supposed to be in this world, and raise that up into becoming who our soul wants us to be, or that's what the intention was when we were born. And it's, if we have parents who are aware, then, and have spent the time to learn and have spent the awareness on learning who they are in their dynamic, then they have much more opportunity of teaching and guiding their children to the highest potential of who they are versus making them be a clone of who they want them to be. Richard took all of that work, and he was put into a very special place in Ireland to have a download in the same sort of manner. And his work is connected to the DNA. Now, all of these three modalities, their guts are based on ancient esoteric teachings and wisdoms and philosophies that have been around for thousands and thousands of years. All three of them, plus others that you will learn about later, have the influence of the I Ching out of the Book of Changes and Divination out of China, which is over 5,000 years old. The Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, Western astrology, Eastern astrology, because Western astrology focuses on the sun as the identifier. I was born in the sign with the sun in Aries. The moon is used by most indigenous cultures. It is used by cultures and teachings that are influenced by the moon, by our emotional bodies, because the moon is based on the water, it is the holder of the information of our emotional frequencies. And so the moon has an influence as well. And everything has an influence. So when Richard brought in the information for the DNA, there are the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, Western and Eastern astrologies, Numerology, um, the chakras.